All Mason and Andy Kamenetsky in for John today, and we are joined. Thanks very much to Coach Riley for joining us. Now we're joined by Coach Stanton Lynn, defensive coordinator for USC. Welcome. How are you, man?
Doing great. How are you guys doing?
Everything is good. So 2 years ago, UCLA's defense, when you were there, made a big quantum leap. Last year, USC's defense made a big jump. What's the secret recipe?
You know, it's all about the players. You know, we feel like as a staff, we want to make sure we get to know our personnel, and we want to make sure we're putting them in the best position. And we're trying to build the system around them instead of building a system that they have to adapt to.
How difficult is it to identify, A, the way you should tailor around certain players, and then B, actually executing that?
It is difficult, and that's a big reason why we move so slow in the spring, because we want to see what we're good at, what our guys can handle, and what each person does best. We feel like after spring, now we have a good idea. Now in camp, we can start speeding up the installs.
So 5 Big Ten losses last year by less than a touchdown, which is just crazy. It was agonizing for me as a fan, right? And I know for you as a coaching staff as well. How do you improve that? What did your guys learn from that? How is this year different?
You know, when we're in positions like that at the end of the game, you know, first off, it starts with the staff, you know, making sure we're making the right call to put them in the position to win. And then after that, you know, you watch the tape, it's just trusting that the guy next to you is going to do his job. When you're in those moments, you don't need to do anything different than you've been doing all game. And I think that we had some moments this past year that we learned from. There were times where we responded towards the end of the year. So now we're just looking forward to, you know, showing all the progress that we've made.
You just mentioned the idea of the players on the field trusting each other. As somebody new last year, do you think maybe they also needed a little bit of time to truly trust you?
Yeah, I do. You know, it goes both ways. And this spring has felt completely different just because we've been with each other so long. And even though we have a lot of new kids on the team, there's still a big core that was here this past year. And, you know, that's a good point. The trust now is night and day.
You know, I hear the national guys say, yeah, Big Ten, it's all in the trenches, all that stuff, and certainly it is. But how much of a leap is it in terms of the trenches from where you were in the Pac-12 and where you are in the Big Ten?
It's a big jump. You know, the Pac-12, you have your physical teams. You had Utah, Oregon State, Arizona. But in between those games, you're going to have some breaks where you're playing air raid, you're playing spread teams. In the Big Ten, it's every single week is going to be a smash mouth game. It doesn't matter if you're playing Northwestern or Ohio State. Every team has big offensive lines. They have big tight ends. They can all control the ball. So the biggest difference is that you really have to have a lot more depth in your front seven in the Big Ten because you're going to have to play a lot more guys.
Obviously, SC is still adjusting to life in the Big Ten after decades in Pac-10, Pac-12. But for you, it's a return to your roots, playing at Penn State. Like, is there a part of you that just gets like, hell yeah, this is the football I know growing up. Like, this is the way I think about football.
Yeah, I love the Big Ten. The Big Ten to me is the closest thing to the NFL. When you look at the way the NFL games play, just from the formations you get, the way offenses attack you, the offensive lines, tight ends. We still play teams that have two-back sets. Like, it's the stuff that you only see in the NFL.
Is that useful for you guys with recruiting, just to be able to say, come to us in the Big Ten, this is closer to what you're going to need to do in the NFL?
I do. You know, it's the closest thing on the field to the NFL. And then now that you look at the expansion, you look at how we travel. Again, that's something that you're going to be doing when you go to the NFL.
You've got returning guys like Eric Gentry, Kamari Ramsey, guys that were huge parts of the defense in the past. How do you manage a whole bunch of new guys coming in? Because now in the age of the transfer portal, we're turning over rosters. How is that for you as a coach in terms of finding some continuity and some consistency?
Every offseason, we always start back at square one, but obviously you want to be able to pick up where you left off also. So it helps when you have new guys that are just high football IQ guys that can pick stuff up. And then also helps when you have a core of guys that were here this past year. Last year, it was just Kamari. So he helped speed up the process with the DBs, but now you see that happening in every single position group. They're not just talking with the coaches. They're having conversations in the locker room. They're talking about it when they go home. I just think that they're all helping each other, and you see everyone picking it up a lot quicker.
I just asked Coach Riley about this earlier, but some new names that fans may not be as familiar with on the defensive side that you think could end up popping this year? Like if you want to give them a heads up, hey, keep an eye on this guy.
We're excited about a ton of guys. I would say up front, a guy like Jahkeem or a guy like Floyd. They're young. They're still making mistakes every single day, but they also make plays every single day that they do some things that you just can't coach.
Right. So Rob Ryan's now part of the staff.
He is.
He is, one of the great defensive guys from the NFL over the years here. What has he brought to your staff, and what does he mean in terms of his communication with players?
He brings experience. He's been a coordinator. He's coached linebackers, defensive line, outside backers. He's coached, obviously, in the NFL for a long time, but he's also coached in college. But just as we talk about building our scheme, just having someone with all that experience to bounce ideas off of has been huge. And then for our guys, they get a chance to just get exposed to what it is to have an NFL position coach. And they're getting coached as if they were in the NFL.
You just mentioned Jahkeem Stewart, new nickname Thanos.
Thanos, yeah.
It's a hell of a nickname. Does he live up to this?
At times he does, yeah, but it needs to be a little bit more consistent.
So he's at maybe like 3 of the stones, but not all the way there?
Yeah.
Hey, in terms of scouting, I know there are 2 games coming up at the Coliseum, and you don't overlook anybody, but do people on your staff, are they already looking at Purdue and Michigan State and down the line?
We try to take it one game at a time, but the first handful of games, we'll try to get a jump start on just as far as are they doing anything that's so different that we need to prepare for in advance. Mm-hmm. But we usually don't go past like the first 5 weeks.
Okay. I want to ask you a couple of dumb things. Coach put up with this, so hopefully you will too. Who on your coaching staff would win a 40-yard dash?
T. Reed.
Favorite football movie?
Remember the Titans.
Yeah, that's mine too. All right, last one. What makes USC better than UCLA?
Just the history and the traditions here, and the thing that I love is for all the Heismans, it's still a defensive school.
Yeah.
It's some of the best defensive players and coaches that have ever been in the NFL have been here in this building.
I love that there was no hesitation whatsoever. Like,
I thought it was
trying
a little
to be nice
bit
to
of a trick
UCLA. It's like, okay, let me give you the list. Here's the list.
Coach Stanton Lynn, thank you so much for coming by, man. We're looking forward to a great season with you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
There you have it, Coach Stanton Lynn, defensive coordinator for the USC Trojans, about to kick off in just a couple of weeks. I think, will we do some sports graffiti next?